The House will be indebted to the noble Lord Lawson in bringing this debate today, including many of the words that he has spoken. He may recall when he was Chancellor under Baroness Thatcher that I was one of her blue-eyed boys. The young fellow from Hackney who had done well, a fine example of entrepreneurial spirit. She hauled me all over the place, actually, displaying me as a prime example of what can be achieved. I was in and out of Downing Street more often than the window cleaners. The thing is, my lords, and possibly the noble Lord Lawson, but the thing is, my lords, I and people like me are a dying breed. When I went to a bank as a young man with my hand out, they thought I was part of a Morecambe and Wise team. Do you have any collateral, a balance sheet, some history of profits? No, I replied. Well then, clear off, was the response. And I, like many others, realised at an early stage that if you want something, you have to get it yourself. And my idea of government support was, you supply me hospitals, schools, a police force, roads to drive on, and a good environment for me to do business in, and that will do me fine. But don't poke your nose into my business. Now, if we reflect back in the past 15 years or so, it has been customary for a person dressed in a nice pair of designer jeans and a nice blue blazer with a white open collared shirt, a bottle of Evian in one hand and a wonderful Microsoft spreadsheet in the other hand. They would walk into a bank and mention the word .com and walk out with £5 million. Well, those days, I'm afraid, are over. We all know what went wrong there, and we also know what a mess the banks got into recently. But the penny has not dropped with some people. We still have, in some cases, an expectancy culture where people still think there should be money freely available to finance lost causes, poorly run companies, or a whim of an idea. And when I was employed as an advisor to Her Majesty's government last year, I had the occasion to visit many small to medium-sized enterprises across the country, and I spoke to several thousands of people. The most frequently asked question of me was, what can this government do to help my business? And my reply, my lords, was not one which was perceived as helpful. I told them, do not rely upon any government to assist you in running your business. You are people who have chosen to go into business, which is very enterprising, and I'm pleased about that. But do not expect to get any advice from government on what new products you should make, what ideas you should pursue, what services your business should provide, or how to market your products and generate income, because that's what you are supposed to do. And more recently, I remind people, who is there in government to be able to dish out such advice? Just step back and look at them. I mean, take, with the greatest respect, the current business secretary. He has never been in business, has never run a business. He's been an advisor or a politician all of his life. He has never touched the coalface. I mean, frankly, what does he know? It is this realism that brings me on to my next point. The current government, in my opinion, is very good at window dressing the demise of the economy by blaming it all on the banks. It's very convenient to repeat continually the same old broken record. It's not our fault, it's the bank's fault. It's the previous government's fault. Well, let's take a look at this for a moment. True, the banks were irresponsible, and they've been told in no uncertain terms to get their act together, but having told the banks to get their house in order, The current government is constantly bleating that the banks aren't being helpful in lending money to small businesses. Whereas the message to the small business community should be one of realism, in understanding that no one is going to lend money to a lost cause. The traditional criteria of showing some assets or having some historic record of profits are things which banks are now looking at before they part with their money. They are definitely open for business. That, may I remind you, is how they make some of their money. And in my recent seminars, I've received comments from some people along the lines of the bank has been outrageous. They've actually asked me to put up some collateral, my house, for example. Well, I'm very sorry, but why not? Why should they take a risk on you if you're not prepared to take a risk on yourself? In my capacity as a business advisor in the last government, I visited many business link centres, which I understand are funded in some way from government. I'm not at all clear how. The cost of running these organisations was something in the region of £250 million per year. To be perfectly frank, apart from meeting a nice bunch of people, there was no real business advice dished out, other than the simple stuff you could pick up and learn for yourself by going on the internet. I would urge the government to redeploy money spent on these types of initiatives in other directions. As a simple example, there are so many empty premises around the country, large factories and warehouses that can be converted and made into incubator factories. These could contain a core factory, a silo of workshops around the periphery. The core factory would be accessible to the individual businesses like satellites around a nucleus. Now, the noble Lord Norton said that sometimes you need to be unpopular. Well, I think the government should come clean in their message to help small to medium-sized enterprises. You cannot, on the one hand, tell the banks you've been naughty for being irresponsible, and on the other hand say, go and be irresponsible again and go and help lost causes. Give SMEs the facts of life. By all means, be bold, be adventurous, but be realistic. And don't expect anyone in Whitehall to give you any hints and tips on how to do it, because basically that's a case of the blind leading the blind. You are the business people, you are the ones with the ideas, you are the ones who are going to drive your business forward. But regretfully, like everything else in life, there are no free lunches. All government can do is provide a good business environment. Assistance from HMRC, for example, export credit guarantee, if you're successful enough to find an export customer. Tax breaks for entrepreneurs who sell their businesses and tax deductions for investment in R&D. But here is the final point. To take advantage of these lollipops, as the noble Lord Lawson has put it, these wonderful tax incentives are now announced in yesterday's budget, might I bring everybody down to earth again and say, to benefit from them, you have to, first of all, make a profit. And how to do that, my lords, is something on which this government, and perhaps some others, have not been capable of advising.
Good stuff. It reminds